Such a unique style. It has this kind of like pulsating kind of sound. But what's cool about it is it makes you kind of think about playing in a whole different way.
This is the rhythm that shook the world.
So that sound right there changed the course of rock and roll. Just one chord, two fingers, and a rhythm that would inspire everyone from Buddy Holly to the Rolling Stones. So we're talking about the legendary Bo Diddley beat. And there's a ton of amazing stuff that you can learn from this. And even though it's really simple, you'll find there's a whole world of music inside this beat. It's absolutely amazing. But before we break down the legendary rhythm and talk about all the cool things you can do with it, let's talk about why it matters. Because Bo Diddley, in the mid-1950s, he took this simple rhythm and he turned it into something that was absolutely hypnotic. The Rolling Stones were such huge fans that they covered his song Mona on their first album. And then Buddy Holly borrowed that rhythm for the song Not Fade Away. So many bands used that rhythm. It's such a cool rhythm. It sounds like this. Alright, so let's break it down. There's three different things. So the first thing is we're going to start off by he tunes to an open E chord. So without the capo, you've got E, B, E, G sharp, B, and E. And then I'm capoing it on the third fret. So that's an open G chord. Now, the next thing he's doing is, if you watch him on the video here, he does this really cool thing where he's actually holding the capo like this, and then he uses his fingers like here to do the palm muting. So he's actually palm muting with his left hand, which allows him to be more powerful and percussive with the right hand. And the basic rhythm, what he's doing is he's playing 16th notes. So the first thing you want to do is just get this rhythm going here. Have your fingers down here totally muted, and you're going to get these 16th notes going. So that's 4 strums to each beat. So it's like 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a, like that. And then what he does is he is placing accents within those 16th notes. And there's basically 5 accents. I'll play the 16th notes and I'll show you where the accents fall. So it's like this. Down, up, down, 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 up, down, down, down. So if you take away the 16th notes, you end up with this down, up, down, down, down rhythm. And then you put that within the 16th notes. So that's the basic rhythm that he uses a lot. I mean, there's lots of variations on that. But then the next thing he does is he'll release his fingers to actually let the chord sound on those accents. So you get this effect. It has this kind of like pulsating kind of sound. And then when you're playing this open tuning, you can add these cool little simple chord shapes in, which is with 2 fingers. So a couple of different ones you can use is this one, which is like, it's kind of like almost like a D chord but down 1 fret. Or this one is like an E7 shape, but it's actually like going to the 4 chord to a C. So basically, what you want to do is play this little rhythm, and you're bouncing your fingers. You just go that little shape there, and it kind of creates a sense of movement. Or so once you've got that down, then you can do lots of variations around it. One of the cool kind of shapes he does is going all the way up here, using this little 2-finger shape here. So you can kind of throw those shapes in. There's lots of cool shapes with this open tuning, but basically you start putting that together. It's deceptively simple, but the thing is, with this type of rhythm, you really got to focus on really getting it in the pocket. So the best thing you want to do is put on your metronome and really kind of get into the groove there. You know, set the metronome to something like about 100 beats per minute or 110 beats per minute, and start off by just kind of getting those 16th notes in the pocket, and then you can start to add in those different elements. So let's take a look at some of his influences and kind of like how this all kind of came together. So one of his big influences was John Lee Hooker. There's actually a story of him watching John Lee Hooker play when he's young, and just like that was the moment that really inspired him of like, I can do this, when he saw John Lee Hooker playing. And John Lee Hooker has such an amazing hypnotic style too. Here he is playing the Stones and Eric Clapton. Such a unique style, but probably more like what he would have first heard would have been playing more of an acoustic song, like Hobo Blues.
When I first come to
Now obviously it's a different rhythm that he's playing there, but it's that essence of that kind of hypnotic beat. And John Lee Hooker would sometimes play an open E, or he would play in just regular tuning, but he'd have these like so they were both from the Mississippi Delta, and there was a way of playing with that Delta blues where it's got that constant thumb and then the melody on the upper strings. So Bo Diddley took that kind of idea, that hypnotic beat, and then he used the open tuning. So even though Bo Diddley wasn't as successful as some of the other people like Chuck Berry and Muddy Waters, behind the scenes he was incredibly influential with many up-and-coming bands, particularly people like Buddy Holly and the Rolling Stones. Keith Richards a lot of times would play in open G, and he maybe would capo, and he would take the 6th string off, so he would only have 5 strings on his guitar. And actually, open E and open G are kind of the same, but it's just with open E, you take these strings here and move them over to the 5th string. So it's the same kind of idea. But you can hear Keith Richards use that sound a lot. So he would take that same hypnotic rhythm, but with the Rolling Stones songs, they would often expand that. And the cool thing about this open E tuning is you can just bar across the frets here and then use your second finger to create that Stones sound. So once you've got that basic kind of Bo Diddley beat, you can start to expand it just like Keith Richards did. And one of the cool things you can do there is just by adding some of these little kind of lead shapes in, which Bo Diddley did a little bit. But you can try doing things like just adding in some lead licks. On the open E tuning, the top 2 strings are kind of the same, so you can do a lot of your regular licks like that, and they just kind of fit right over the chord. So you can play rhythm and lead at the same time. And then you could just start to experiment and have fun with this technique here. And with these open tunings, just a lot of rock players experimented with these open tunings like Keith Richards or Jimmy Page. But what's cool about it is it makes you kind of think about playing in a whole different way. Instead of being kind of locked into your regular music theory and your pentatonic patterns and all this kind of stuff, you can just experiment. And one of the cool ways of approaching it is just by finding these like 2-note shapes. So for example, on the middle strings, you can go like that, and then you can start to kind of play around with those shapes. And then on the 3rd and 2nd strings, it's this shape here, like I mentioned before. And then even on the high strings, this little shape's kind of cool. Kind of Jimmy Page sounds. So you can just have a lot of fun experimenting with these really simple 2-finger shapes up and down the neck of the guitar. And even if you take more of like the finger picking approach to it, you can really turn the guitar into an orchestra doing that. I mean, I remember the first time when I was young, I discovered this open E tuning. I just sat there for hours and hours just playing all these different shapes, and it just opened up a whole new world on the guitar for me. So I hope you have a lot of fun with that technique, and check out some of Bo Diddley's music. It's absolutely amazing. And John Lee Hooker and the Stones, all this is great music to listen to. And if you've enjoyed learning about this, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what other classic guitar techniques you'd be interested in learning about, and your stories about playing in open tunings. I'd love to hear from you. And remember, sometimes the simplest things have the biggest impact. And something that Bo Diddley used to often say too was, turn it up.